there's Wake Up World Cup, which is a good show that you should watch from our boys over in England and France who are covering the World Cup. But back here on stateside, it's me and Matt. Welcome to the show. And Matt, we were talking in the pre-show a couple minutes ago about live betting. Now, live betting has become very popular, and I gotta say, to me, and we'll get to the golf aspect of it in a minute, but to me, it's dangerous because if I'm betting on a pitch or a pitcher or what does this guy do? If he misses one free throw, all right, in the course of a game, you know, it leads. I guess what I'm saying is it leads, if not to the illusion that this could be rigged, it gives incentive to us, to certain players just to, not blow the game, but just maybe not get a pitch to the right place, maybe miss a free throw, or as in the case of golf, which we're sliding into right now, yelling, on the tee when when the guy's getting his backswing.
Yeah, well, you already have an example in Major League Baseball of what you're just talking about, to kind of confirm people's fears or suspicions with Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz, the two former Guardians pitchers that are no longer in Major League Baseball. They were doing exactly what you just described. Is they were saying like, hey, if I get in the game today, pitch one ball, and like it was egregious. It's bad because it was egregious to the point to where it was something so clear and obvious that it didn't really take a lot of investigative work to find those guys out. I mean, hell, there was a pitch for Emmanuel Clase where this is a guy who was a Cy Young candidate as a closer. It was sporting a .43 ERA, I believe, back in 2024, 23, one of the two.
It hasn't been that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago. And so this is a guy who clearly has a really good command of his stuff. And I mean, there's just a time where he spikes one in the ground. And when you've got 100K on a first pitch ball from a random account, and he spikes one in the ground, suspicions rise. And then they counter, they went back and cross-referenced a bunch of different pitches with large wagers. And that's how they found that betting scandal out. Now you have something that's actionable outside of really the player's realm and the player's grasp. No one can control if somebody yells in your backswing. Say they remove you, say they remove the fan or the patron after that. There's nothing you can do. What has happened has happened, and that's part of the reason why live betting was dangerous. I think there's a legitimate disdain and hatred for sports gambling and gambling in general across the United States. And there's an understandable aspect of it, because when you see stuff like this and you have a story like the one we're discussing that came out in the Washington Post, there's legitimate cause and claim for this being such a negative thing. I enjoy a sports bet from time to time, but there are just so many people that don't have the capability or limitations to govern themselves or find the line where things stop.
Yeah, full transparency. I worked with a wagering company, Winners and Winers, and Chris King, phenomenal handicapper, one of the best I can tell you in the country. Craig Peterson, Lenny West, and all these guys were sports handicappers, and all these guys, would caution you on, coach you, I suppose would be a better way of putting it, on bets, and not one of them thought that live betting was a good idea. Because, and Lenny brought up a great point. He said, there's latency. If I'm watching something on cable and you're watching something on streaming and somebody else is watching something, on live TV, that pitch, even if it's, 1 or 2 seconds after, I've got it, you don't know what's going to happen. So watching it on TV, unless you're physically there. And now, my the thing is, just to circle back for a second to the golf thing. What the hell are these people doing on the golf course with phones?
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's only one place in the world where they have a complete and total ban on electronic devices, and that's Augusta National.
Right.
So it's tough, and the live aspect is always gonna. I feel like it was always gonna bring in a level of distrust. Like it gives more options to bet. To be honest, it gives sports books more options to take money from people because I mean, let's be honest, you're trying to guess on something, guess a swing here or there, and it's just I get why sportsbooks do it. I understand it's a different kind of option, but it's the option that in something that already feels like it brings into question the integrity of these different games. This option in and of itself changes things entirely in terms of, how much can you trust it? And again, there's been now examples where it sucks because I mean, again, in this golf example, it's not these golfers that are going out here and saying like, "All right, well, okay, I got my buddy off the course. He put me down for a
Hmm.
5 here. I guess I better go make bogey." Like
Right.
that's not what we're doing. It's not something that these guys are actively involved in. It's
Mhm.
something that the fans have the ability to alter and change.
Right.
And I mean, you could see it, and there are certain guys that like I'd say there's obvious ones that it would work better for. Rory
Mhm.
McIlroy is a fantastic example of like, hey, if I yell in this guy's backswing, something's going to go awry here. Like that,
Right.
it just happens. I think, with all due respect, like you really would have expected Wyndham Clark going back to the U.S. Open last week given his history, I expected him to react a little bit more adversely to the fan and negative reaction than he had. And I don't even think that was in reference to any kind of live betting. But those guys have no control over that. They have no control over the crowd, and the crowd can impact their swing if they so choose to speak at the wrong moment because it can be it. I think the best description is they've gotten used to one thing, and the one thing is that it's relatively quiet. And I say relatively because there's still at times some murmurs and things like that, a little bit of the whispers of the crowd, if you will.
Mhm.
But they get used to something, and when something cuts through in the process of something, then it almost startles you or it makes you tense up, and that's where things go awry.
Yeah, look. These are live bets during an event are prop bets. Okay, prop bets tend to not pay a lot of money unless you put a lot of money on them. Um, so I don't understand. It wouldn't, and you, as you say, gambling. I've When I talk to these guys who are professionals, right? They talk in units. Okay. Now, a unit could be $5, a unit could be $10, it could be 100, whatever you choose the unit to be. And the reason they call it units is I have a certain amount. Basically, they're saying I have a budget for a month. If I
Mhm.
exhaust that budget in 2 weeks, then I don't bet for 2 weeks. The key is not to chase your losses.
Yeah.
And that's the key to success in wagering. Now, I don't. There's a number of prop bets that I have that I you don't have to bet, as you know, you don't have to bet on the game at all. Okay, you can bet on a number of things happening in the game, which would pay you a nice piece of change if you were to maybe hit two or three of them. I don't have any trouble in baseball, for instance, for the first five. Right, the first five meaning which starting pitcher is going to do better in the first 5 innings of the game.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. That's cool. I have a problem with that. First half scoring, in football and basketball and hockey. My point being, the prop bets that are before the game starts. makes sense. But the live betting inside the game, to me, is the single most dangerous way to have a someone who doesn't know anything about what they're doing lose a lot of money fast.
Yeah, yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, there's even in terms of the live betting, you can get live lines in terms of what you're looking at. You know, the game in progress. Like,
Mhm.
if the Red Sox are down 10 to the Yankees, yet like maybe not 10. I think at 10 they probably wouldn't offer that on the odds market. Let me
Yeah,
take
I
that.
think I think you lost it at that point.
If they're down five, if they're down five in the third inning, right?
Yeah.
Then I can go get, absurd odds on the Red Sox, and I can go set my money on fire by betting on them.
Hmm.
But like they offer that stuff, and it definitely is a way that people can lose money that way because they're just chasing a big payout. They see a big number. Then again, if they're doing that, they're not betting right. I think there's such a lack of understanding in terms of betting and overall like the way markets work,
Hmm.
and it's just such a thing where people get into it without really understanding or having knowledge of. Like, I I spend a good 90% of my life, watching, learning, reading about sports, all this other stuff. I do my best to know as much as I can about a bunch of different sports. Yet when I
Hmm.
get up there and I place a bet, like there's no guarantee in it, right? Like anything can happen. I
Right.
can have I can have a pitcher on the mound for the Rockies have a 10 ERA going
Hmm.
against the best team in baseball with the Cy Young favorite.
Right.
And guess what? It just may not be their day. And I could have put, the house on the best team in baseball with the Cy Young favorite,
Sure.
and it just may not matter because guess what? The altitude's playing that day. The Rockies starter has enough, and their bats get hot. Like that just happens. So there's so much that flips and goes wrong. I mean, you can look at App State, Michigan. Like these things happen, and I think there's a lot of times in sports that people look at things as guarantees and believe things to be guarantees. Like if I was going back, if I had placed a wager, I would have placed it on the San Antonio Spurs. I didn't think that the Knicks,
Hmm.
match up with them across the five. I was wrong. Like it's just such a volatile thing, and people come in with this expectation of winning and thinking that it's easy, and sometimes well, this number's just like set wrong. No, they set it there for a reason. These guys get paid enough, and so I think there's just this false sense of security that you're entitled to winning when you start betting.
Well, the other part of the equation is that, and this is where things get really kind of dicey, and that is you start betting with your heart, right? You bet for your team, and that clouds your judgment because as a fan, you're going to see things the way you want to see it, as opposed to being totally analytical about this whole thing.
Hmm.
Each one of these people I'm talking about, right? Lenny and Chris and Craig and the gang and Allie Burns. By the way, if you are someone who does like gambling, follow Allie Burns, ALIBURNS. Allie is one of the nicest people. I love Allie to death. Allie, she's in Vegas and she teaches people how to bet. She's got a little whiteboard and and does a really good job of explaining, why she is putting money on, X, Y, or Z, whatever the team may be. Um, and I do think that part of this is a education aspect, right? You look at things and you try to analyze them, and you realize that, as you just said, we don't have any control over how this game's going to go, one way or the other. I mean, I can't even begin to count how many games I've done in my career, or many games that I've watched just watching it. And I've never been a big gambler, okay? And I mean, with all of the resources that for a year at Winners and Winers, I didn't bet. I didn't place a bet.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that not because I'm a saint or I'm against gambling. It's I just have this thing about losing money. I prefer not to do it. Uh, silly me. I get it. Okay, but um, I do think that the key here is that when somebody does ask me about betting, I said, look, first and foremost, don't bet what you don't have, right? So, if you're going to do it, put a limit on it. Secondly, don't don't bet on your favorite teams because regardless of whether they win or lose, okay, you can't be objective about it. And
Yeah.
I mean, Chris King is a lifelong Buffalo Bills fan. He grew up in Buffalo, loves Buffalo. Has never in the 30 years he's done this has he ever placed a bet on the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I think I would say I learned my lesson pretty quickly in terms of betting on teams. Like there was I think back in 20 what was it? It would have been 22 at this point in time. Georgia was playing Oregon and I just placed a bet on the over under. I didn't even place a bet on the line.
Right.
And that over under missed by a point. And I left the building of a 49-3 Georgia Oregon win a
Mm-hmm.
lot less happy than I should have been, given the fact that the team that I wanted to win not only won but just blew them out of the building.
But by 1 point too short.
Yeah, by 1 point too short. So I mean, I was sitting there actively rooting for an Oregon touchdown in the final 2 minutes of the game, just so that over hit. And I think that just perfectly illustrates like where it can infect. Honestly, if you love sports and you're in it for the love of sports, then gambling, some people say it increases the fun, this, that, and the other, which is not a great way to look at it in the first place, because I feel like that mindset gets you into a dangerous position in terms of your outlook on gambling and
Mm-hmm.
how it being and relating it to sports. But I also think that it just can ruin the fun for your team. I'm also superstitious. I don't think my team's going to win if I place a wager on them. So there's that part of the superstition as well for me.
Well, superstition is not a bad thing to have,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to that kind of thing. And the aspect of it makes it more fun, right?
Hmm.
All right, fine. I'll tell you what. If you and I are, watching a game and we want to wager, I maybe say, you know what? Tell you what, I'll buy you dinner, right? I,
Hmm.
whoever wins this game, if I pick one, I got Georgia. I mean, yeah, I got Florida. You got Georgia.
Hmm.
And if the Gators win, recently that's not going to happen. But if the Gators do find a way to win against Georgia, then you pick up the next. You pick up dinner. On the other side, if Georgia wins, which is probably likely in the scenarios that I've had recently, I'm buying you dinner. So it's more of a casual bet, I guess is what I'm saying.
Hmm.
As I got $100 on this football game. I could not comfortably watch the game.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes you more.
Me, I mean, I'm not making I'm not making any judgments here. I'm just telling you, for me, that would be tough to sit there and watch.
Yeah, it definitely makes you a little more squirmy when you're watching. And also I think there's a certain belief of, listen, people want to chase payouts.
Sure.
I know people and I have friends who bet what I would consider to be not necessarily the smartest ways.
Hmm.
You try to encourage people to bet a little smarter, but sometimes they just want to put in an 8 leg parlay. It's gonna, you can put in $5 and win 10 grand.
Right.
But I think there's like a misconception that's just, you put in enough of them, it's gonna hit. Like no, there's such a there's such a lack of understanding when it comes to betting, and I as stupid as it may sound, gambling literacy in a certain way and understanding how to do it. And I think a lot of it starts. I mean, if we're just being flat out honest, some of the biggest places that people gamble is frat houses across America.
Hmm.
Uh, and there's this, and a lot of times, you talk to these guys, they're not always betting with their money, and so if you're not betting with your money, then it takes away the risk of it, and it
Yeah.
creates this false sense of security, it builds bad habits in gambling as well that can later transition over to when you are gambling your own money. Um, and so again, it's just a long chain, and part of the problem again is it's so commercialized, like so commercialized. Oh, there was a betting scandal recently that ESPN was covering it, and during the
Hmm.
first part of their segment, there was a bottom ticker rolling across the bottom that had ESPN bet with like the best for the day, and it's like at a certain point, I don't know who's to blame. Like it feels like I guess the Barstool Sports movement almost a normalized it in a sense, and I think with how mainstream it's become, it has created a lot more problems than it I think it used to be. Like I think when betting was smaller and it wasn't as commonplace across America, that it wasn't as much of an issue. But now that it's become so mainstream, so popular, and every time you turn on a game, this is a problem as well. You turn on an MLB game, you turn on, NBA, NFL, college football. Man, it'd be a miracle I'm not getting slapped with a DraftKings or a FanDuel ad somewhere in the middle. Like it's gonna happen. These platforms are there. Going back to college football, man, you sit down to watch an SEC game, you're gonna get pinned with two or three ESPN bet commercials every single time you want to watch that prime time SEC on ABC game. So it's the commercialization of it has become a real issue as well.
Well, yeah, and the embracement of the leagues. I mean, I can tell you, going back to my early days as producer director, man, if we even alluded to the point spread, they'd shut us down quick.
Yeah, I mean now they practically start the damn show with it. Like, hello everybody, this is Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Glad you could join us here on Monday Night Football. The Raiders are 3.5 point dogs.
Hmm.
So like that feels like an opening monologue that you'll hear at this point.
I will tell you, I know a lot of people know Brett Musburger from his days on TV and now with Vision out in Vegas. And I've worked with Brett, and when they first started with he and Jimmy the Greek, I mean, you could get you could get Brett to bet on whether or not you know if we ordered room service, if it would be there in 20 minutes. You know, there was nothing that Brett wouldn't bet on. And I'm not saying anything that hasn't been chronicled, over. This is not me breaking news here on Brett. If he was here with us, he would laugh and say, "Yeah, absolutely." Um, so when they brought in Jimmy the Greek on the pregame show for CBS, there was a concern. The league, as a matter of fact, Pete Rozelle at that time was the commissioner, and Rozelle was concerned about, all right, what are we doing here? We're doing a show on television where we we're talking about who's going to win the game because that's what Greek was on for. And he would say, without, it was kind of like a nudge, nudge, wink, wink thing, right? He
Hmm.
wouldn't say exactly what the score would be, or he wouldn't say this or that. He would say, well, Buffalo playing in that kind of weather today against New England, that could mean that there's not going to be a lot of points scored, and that may be, gosh, because they could win by maybe a touchdown or less, or maybe it comes down to a field goal. So he was speaking in code basically that
Hmm.
if you were a better, you could tell, okay, cool, I get it. Um, you know, we take the under, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's not like the league didn't do it. But the problem to me was, once the genie was out of the bottle, the fact that the official, the official, um, the official um, betting service for the NFL or for NBA or for, for ESPN, as you were just saying, the FanDuel network, which was basically created with FanDuel with their own. FanDuel had their own, um, deal where they sponsored it. Um, so, and before that was Bally's. So you can have a MGM bet app. Um, if I were to go here in the I-95 corridor from Washington to Boston, I would have to have four apps to get me from to bet on sports as I moved north. Okay,
Mhm.
so I could bet on it because each state has their own special deal they have. And I
Yeah.
passed through four states to get there, right?
Hmm.
So passing through those four states, my one app is not necessarily going to be applicable to the other state. You have to be careful of that. So it's, I mean, as we started to talk about this with the golf and the whole routine, it's, as I said before, I'll get Chris King on was in the not too distant future. And Chris will explain prop bets. He'll explain how and what to look for in those kind of things. But professional gamblers stay away from top 25 sporting. I mean, top 25 football.
Yeah.
They'll take, you know they'll make three bets. Two of them will probably be in the Ivy League, and one of them is going to be some obscure Division two. Not necessarily a Division 1 game, but an obscure game that most people wouldn't care about, even if they were sitting there in the stadium.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not. They stay away from the big games. Now, will they tell you what they think about those games? Yeah. But the other thing about sports betting in the media here, we're talking about sports, sports on television, and in these kind of situations, these guys are numbers guys. I mean, they're not. They're not. They don't. I guess what I want to say is, you would think that they were an average sports fan, right? Or at least
Hmm.
a really detailed sports fan. They're not necessarily. I mean, but what they are is very good at taking numbers and extrapolating it and finding trends. And so here you got guys who could probably work as accountants and actuaries and people who deal with these numbers all the time, and they will tell you the trends, and
Hmm.
that's why they stay away from it. If you want somebody, if you're a basketball guy, college basketball especially, and you want something that will help you, you know, as you choose college basketball games as to who might win or might lose, go to Ken Palm. It costs a lot of money to buy it, but if you're gonna, if you get one bet hit, you might be able to pay for it. But Ken Palm breaks everything down.
Hmm.
Like this team plays better on Tuesdays than they do on Thursdays. Um, they've got everything down to the absolute total, number. But you can't, you just can't look at this and say that in game betting is a good idea. It just is not a good idea.
Yeah. No. Again, the main point is it brings back the integrity of these games and these sporting events. And again, there's outside factors that already do that. Like the NFL has a deal in place with ESPN that has a sportsbook platform. That feels like a conflict of interest in and of its own self. When you have these leagues that are in partnership with sports betting companies, whether it be directly or whether it be, it semi indirectly. Like it's been, I guess their link, the NFL's link with ESPN Bet is an indirect link, but it's a link nonetheless. Where this is now a business partnership, and in a business partnership, listen, what are you doing? You're looking out for each other's best financial interests. And in that case, you get enough money on one game. y- I mean, you can sit back there and hypothesize, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're sitting there and go, all right, ESPN's got such and such tonight that like they've got Monday night football tonight. All right. It's not a great Monday night football draw. They need some eyes on it. Like that's when you can start, how do we drum up business for them? Maybe ESPN puts out something on their betting platform that drums up business. And
Hmm.
maybe ESPN receives a heavy sum off of that promo or whatever they've put out,
Hmm.
and now it incentivizes that game to go the other way. Like it's not some. I'm not saying it's something that's happening, but I'm saying you get the wrong people in the wrong spots, and it's something that you could very easily conceive. I mean, you even go back to Tim Donaghy in his time refereeing in the NBA, and you see
Right.
how these people inside of these organizations, whether they're at the top or in the middle, these people who are involved in these operations can get involved in betting and can alter these outcomes. And I mean, really, when you start dangling enough money in front of these people's faces, everybody has a price. Everything has a price. And if you dangle enough money in front of them, you never know what that price may be.
Exactly. And you we come to the point where people just they feel or think that this is a quick way to make cash, right? And it's just not. You know, I again, I'm not preaching to the to people who saying that I'm down on gambling because I'm morally opposed to it. I'm not morally opposed to it. What I am is I want to make sure that if you do this, a, you can afford to do this, and b, you at least take a minute and figure out what the hell it is that you're betting on.
I mean, Jim, I'll tell you this. Like, I won a bet last night. I put a bet in last night. I'll probably put another one in tonight. And I say these things as somebody
Mhm.
that does this and enjoys doing this, but there are different levels to it. And
Mhm.
I mean, I've been at a level where I've been more involved in it. I've been at a level now where maybe I'll put one in a day, but it's not something that I like
Mhm.
sit down and like heavily consider and toil over.
Right.
But again, there's different levels of buy-in. But just because I do it and just because I enjoy it doesn't mean that I'm blind or unaware to the risk and to
No,
potentially
of course
effects
not.
it has on sports in general.
No, I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with it, right?
Hmm.
You'd spend that same amount of money on going to a movie or going out with guys, just going out to the bar or something like that. So
Yep.
okay, fine. It's the cost of it's just me putting down a few bucks tonight and because I think I've got a pretty good feel on who's going to win whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. And I think that the key here is just to understand that the actual phrase gambling tells you exactly the fact that does if they said winning, that would be a whole different ballgame. But
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
guess what I'm saying is I know that I've known you now for a while. I know that you're not going to do anything stupid because you're a smarter person than I, and b, you realize, okay, I understand what goes on in sports. You spend a lot of time working on it. Okay,
Mhm.
a lot of these guys don't. They just come home and they're gonna lay down money on something, and they're doing it because they heard somebody on sports talk radio, give their thoughts on it, and you know, it's 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 all I'm saying is it's dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'll give you this because there's an app. It's an app that I use. It's legal in like most of the states. I'm pretty sure it's called Prize Picks, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And what Prize Picks is kind enough to do for you is they're kind enough to show you their performance in that category over the last 5 games. So I've got a line here that I'm looking at. Paul Skeens' line for tonight against the Cincinnati Reds for pitches thrown is 100 and a half. Paul Skeens has thrown more than 100 pitches in the last 5 outings. That's fine and dandy. If Paul Skeens gives up 5 in the third, he's not going to throw over 100 pitches.
Nope.
Betting has no memory. Like I think that's the biggest thing, and the thing that people don't realize is, it's the same thing as when you walk up in a casino and you walk up to the roulette table and say, well, black's hit 5 out of the last 6 spins. Black's hot. Well, black has the exact same odds as red and green as they do on every other spin. It just happens that this coin landed on heads, 5 out of the last 6 times, and so far has yet to land on its side, which is the green. So yeah, it's betting has no memory, but people buy into trends and think that this is like real momentum and stuff that you can bank on, when in reality that's just it's just not true whatsoever.
Yeah, and and I think that one of the things the networks are going to have to figure out, because there's so much money being pumped in their directions, and let's just not just say sports networks that are doing it. You can watch the evening news. You can watch anything that you would think would be okay. Well, this is just the way it goes, right? Um, you could see all that and still end up being in that whole situation um, of not knowing what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I think you talked about the evening news, and something that I see more often now than it has been in the past is as I sit here and I've talked about the dangers of sports betting, where people go wrong in sports betting. The as bad as live betting is, and sports betting can be, it's got nothing on whatever the hell these prediction markets are.
Oh no,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's just that these things are horrible in terms of what they offer, and markets that they're creating. You want to talk about a place where you can just drain your cash. The prediction market's the place to go.
Well, and the other part of that is, you're betting on you can bet on the war. I mean, if that isn't sick, I don't know what the hell is.
Yeah, I mean, and some of these prediction markets have like almost seemingly undefinable timelines.
Hmm.
Like is I think I've seen one like, is so and so going to like it. I think that's the celebrity couple I'll use. Shout out to the finals. Are
Hmm.
Timothy Chalamet and Kylie Jenner going to break up? Like, just a general question. They won't put a timeline on it. So where's our timeline? Where's my cash out? Do they get to get married, and if they get divorced, does it cash out in 25 years? Like, is that something that happens? So it's just it's so generic and manipulative, really, are those prediction markets.
Yeah, and it's something you want to be careful, definitely careful of,
Yeah.
because things can go squirrely real fast.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, all right, well, I think we beat the, no pun intended, the horse on that one. Um, let's see. I, I know you're a golf guy, as
Hmm.
am I. Will you watch any of the LPGA Championship this week?
Maybe a little bit. I think the story that Nelly Corda has going right now is really good. She's won the first. I think it's the first 2 majors of the year. I know they play 5.
Yeah,
I just can't remember for the life of me when they are, if I'm being just honest with you.
sure.
And she's played really good golf. I mean, she's what is it now? Does she have 4 majors in her career at this point?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, and now she's starting to diversify. I know she had won the Chevron a couple of times, and now she's starting to get a couple more, inching closer to that career Grand Slam. Which, by the way, in terms of the LPGA, listen, I get why, like, numbers wise, I feel like in order to complete the career Grand Slam, even though this isn't going to technically be the criteria, if you're going to have 5 majors, you got to win all 5. You can't just win 4 of them and call it the career Grand Slam.
Hmm.
At least that's my opinion and my belief of it.
Oh, I think you're right, and I think that the interesting part to me about this is that you know we want, as as fans, to see people win the best events when the best events are being played. And I think with what Nelly's done, which has been impressive to me, is that her consistency.
Mm-hmm.
She's always there. She may not win, but she's always she's always in the conversation.
Yeah, it's been good for golf to kind of have the what feels like the same player on each side of the of on for each gender at the same time in golf because what Scotty Scheffler and what Nelly Korda have done on either side of the coin have been very comparable in terms of their success across both of their tours respectively. And so it's been good for golf as a whole, but I think it's been really good because you've been able to draw those comparisons. You've been able to kind of garner an audience based off of those comparisons and be like, if you like what he's doing, you're going to like what she's doing because she's doing the same thing. It's just on a different, it's ladies and it's on a different tour and it's on a different golf course. Sometimes a different golf course. I mean, they played at Riviera this year for the U.S. That was the women's U.S. Open, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it's they're really comparable in terms of the success that they're having on each of their tours.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very important thing to have. Is that consistency of um, having stars, right? That each week, whether some people were put off by the fact that Tiger Woods used to win all the time, right?
Hmm.
Um, which was, to me, not a bad thing. It's like, the guy deserved it. I mean, we went out there and he won the tournament.
Yeah, the only
You
negative,
can't penalize somebody for being good.
yeah, the only negative I think that Tiger Woods created when he played was he created, back in the day what they called the Tiger Tour,
Right.
which was, you're getting the top players playing these events that Tiger's going to play. And if Tiger's not playing them, sometimes a lot of these guys may not play in them as well.
Hmm.
And so that's an issue. I think that it's an issue. A statement was made today that the PGA Tour is not going to hold Rory McIlroy to the 15 event minimum. Like, I think that sets a bit of a dangerous precedent. Listen, there's a certain aspect of when this guy is as good as he's been. Back to back Masters champion. Obviously, he's got the career Grand Slam. But I think there's a legitimate case for i- if you're not bending the rules for the guy who's currently the number one player in the world and has been for the last 3 years, I believe it is. Then why are we bending the rules for Rory McIlroy? I know he's been there a while, but it feels like a dangerous precedent to set.
Yeah, and you don't want. I mean, look, you want to you want to have everybody there who deserves to be there.
Hmm.
And we talked earlier about um, you going out and basically saying, okay, um, are we getting to see the best people, right?
Hmm.
You pay your money to see, the top players, and you want to see them. And if Scotty Scheffler or Nelly Korda or any of these other um, folks in any way, shape, or form are not there, um, and you came all this way just to see him, then it's a problem.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and it hurts these events in a lot of ways because look, not all of them are going to be. Not everybody's wants to go to TPC River Highlands up in Connecticut. I get
Right.
it. It's not it, and with the regionality of golf and the way they travel is it's hard to create fandom that
Mhm.
travels with you. Like it's just not possible. But when you have a field that doesn't have the biggest names in golf, or at least you're limiting your opportunities to have the biggest names in golf, then
Mhm.
that feels like it's a negative or working against what you would believe to be your business model, what you would believe to be good for your business. But special players get special exemptions, I guess.
Yeah, I remember in tennis, and they do this in golf as well. Not as much in golf anymore, but they do in tennis. is they offer somebody a appearance fee,
Yeah.
and the appearance fee um, can range anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000. And it doesn't. They can sometimes win more money, you know, in that type of racing. I mean, racing that type of sport than they would if they were actually racing,
Hmm.
or playing or whatever it is that they were doing.
Yeah.
So is it a bad thing? I don't know. I mean, it's I don't begrudge anybody who, if somebody says to you, we used to joke that Yvonne Lendl used to come to the Washington tournament, tennis tournament, which is the week after Wimbledon, right? So you
Hmm.
can imagine a lot of people, has been through Wimbledon. The last thing they want to do is get on an airplane, fly across, to DC, and then, start on Tuesday playing tennis again. Um, Normally, you get the people who got bounced early from Wimbledon who would then come over and play, right?
Hmm.
Well, back in the day, Lendl would get 50,000 just to show up,
Yeah.
and the joke used to be that Yvonne's, got out of his car, grabbed his tennis racket, went out on the court, and went back and left the car running. Right? It's just like, get out of here as fast as I can. I've got my money. I showed up. I sold tickets. Now I'm gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
mean, I guess when you reach that level, that becomes more your job than
mhm.
as much as your performance does matter. Roy McIlroy's performance does matter, but I think the matter of the fact is that Roy McIlroy's performance only matters in 4 golf tournaments a year at this point. And more than anything. I mean, if we're just being honest, like that's where people, if he shows up to TPC River Highlands and he's not playing great at TPC River Highlands, maybe you get some, like, is there something wrong with Rory? But it's more of, getting fans there that they're there to see Rory McIlroy than, whether or not he's going to be the one holding the trophy at the end of the 4 days.
Yeah, and I think that his history has been a history that is he has no problem being competitive. That's not an issue you're going to worry about. He'll
Yeah.
be competitive. And the other thing is, having Rory on the grounds makes, for a very entertaining event as well, because he's nothing if not boisterous about what he wants to do or what he's going to do.
Hmm.
He's no shy person when it comes to that. So there you go with that. Um, Talking about, when we talked about, I was mentioning about my um, meltdown with. I'm now going to start watching my other favorite team, the Los Angeles Dodgers, because of what happened with my team. But um, we've got our first thing here out on the All Stars. Let me give you a run on it, and and you tell me what you think. First base right now for the National League, Freddie Freeman. The American League is Guerrero Jr. Um, Second base. Where's my second base? Somebody's got to be playing second base. All right. Let me. The ballot got wiped off here for a second. Let me get it back. Um, Look, I get Freddie Freeman at first base is not something I'm, uh, you know. All right. Here's what it is. This is where the two finals, because we're now in the voting process. Okay.
Hmm.
Here's the NFL. These are the ones that are still up for grabs, meaning that the the vote tabulation is close enough that to vote it one way or the other. And this is an ironic one because you got one former Atlanta Braves first baseman and the guy who took his place are both, right now uh, looking out for the NL first baseman's job, and that's Freddie Freeman of the Dodgers and Matt Olson of Atlanta.
Yeah, that is an interesting, juxtaposition. I look, I get why it's in there,
Hmm.
but again, I feel like we've had this discussion before. I
Hmm.
just think it was probably in reference to a different sport. I hate the fan voting system with everything inside of me.
Yep.
98% of the people that are involved in it have no idea what their numbers are, how they got there. You mentioned Vlad Guerrero Jr. I'm assuming he's on the AL ballot, correct?
Yeah. Hmm.
He's a guy who's hit 273 and has 4 home runs. Like that's not an all-star up until
Well,
this.
he's also not a very good first baseman when it comes to defensively.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, I can off the top of my head, I can tell you that Wilson Contreras is batting 276 and I believe has 16 home runs
Hmm.
at the current point. Also, he plays a really good defensive first base, and that's not even including the guy out in out in my bad, not well. Actually, it is California. It's in Sacramento, and what is soon to be the Vegas A's, currently like the Sacramento AAA A's. Um, but Nick Kurtz has played a fantastic first base, and he has been a world class hitter this year, and he's not there as well. Is these people don't watch baseball, and I'm not asking them to watch baseball in this way. What I'm asking is these are accolades that you use on Hall of Fame resumes, and we are letting Jim, Larry, and the boys who sit down and only watch the Atlanta Braves all year to vote on who deserves to be the All Star. Well, of course, they think Matt Olson should be your All Star starting first baseman. That's the only guy they've watched, except for the other guys that rotate in there from time to time. So maybe Vlad had a good weekend against them, and they're just going to toss him in on the AL ballot because they remember he had a pretty good series once when they played him. So that's my issue in this whole thing. Like the ballots are going to be what they're going to be, but the fans just historically get it so wrong because name value means more than anything else. And name value comes down to listen, sometimes it's a team's PR team, like PR, their ability to get their stars' names out there sometimes are better than others, but sometimes it falls on Major League Baseball as well. Major League
Right.
Baseball has shown over its social media accounts that sometimes they will disproportionately cover other players, if
Hmm.
they're hot or if they get a bunch of views because sometimes there are guys that just aren't playing that well. But damn it, if they hit a home run, they're gonna post it. Cal Raleigh wasn't hitting for crap. I mean, this season, but the second that he comes back from injury and he homers, that got posted. Like he's
Hmm.
batting in the low 200s.
Right. He was
Again,
below the Mendoza line.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's disproportionate coverage, so that can lead to disproportionate voting as well.
Yeah. Let me go back. This whole thing started this vote situation when Gillette in the late 60s, early 70s came up with a plan, a promotion. And that would be that, they would put these ballots in grocery stores around the country and drugstores around the country. And basically, you would walk by this, the um, Gillette um, display at,
Hmm.
at the grocery store or whatever, and it was it's selling their shaving cream and the razors and all that other stuff. But you could pick up a ballot, right? So they had ballots all over the country, from that standpoint. Then Gillette paid Major League Baseball to give out the ballots at the ballpark. Okay, there was one year, and I'll have to go back and look at it. It's in the early '70s, where I believe either 6 or 7 starters of the National League team were Cincinnati Reds. Now that was the Big Red Machine days, but you know, to say that the Reds had 7 players, on the team that were all worthy of the All Star game, you know, Sparky Anderson didn't even say that. Then the ironic thing was it was Chuck Tanner, who had won the World Series before, who was, I'm sorry, it wasn't. It was Danny Murtaugh in '71, who
Hmm.
had won the World Series and was the manager. And he said he was just giving Sparky the night off.
Yeah,
So, there's always been come on, it's this is not. They call it an all-star game. It's a personality contest.
yeah. And I think you go back to, I think it was 2014, 2015, somewhere where
Mhm.
Kansas City was having that run and they made, I
Yeah.
believe it was back-to-back World Series. And there was one of those years, I think they had 9 All-Stars and like 7 of the position players were
Mhm.
starters or something like that. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, all right. I get it. They're a really good team. They have to be a really good team to have the season that they're having, and that means that guys are deserving of all-star spots. I get it. But telling me that 7 of the 9 position players are the best in their league at that moment in time, it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell, and it's not the truth as well.
No, and it never will be the truth.
Yeah.
It's just another opportunity to to take um, a sponsor and basically allow them to put this in. But I mean, I would prefer to see, you know, if you want to take 1/3 of the vote and give it to the fans, that's fine.
Yeah.
Then take the other 2/3 and give it to, you know, the baseball media, the people who can't cover them every day. And that's not just the writers, that would be the broadcasters,
Hmm.
radio and television as well. And um, and then the other one would be to the players.
Hmm.
And there used to be a deal where you could vote. The players would vote, but were not allowed to vote for a player on your own team.
Yeah.
And
And like,
so you add those three together, and that might be a fair way to do it.
which I want to pull it up because I'm trying to remember and I can't off the top of my head.
Hmm.
Let me see here. It's the American League All Star ballot. Let's see. Let's see. So in the outfield, they've got plenty. They got plenty of good options. Like I'm not debating some of the options that they have. Jesus Sanchez is in there for voting, and
Really?
this is just the one that I have off the top of my head. But like the Red Sox have Cedar Rafaela in center field. He plays at a minimum a Gold Glove caliber, probably Platinum Glove caliber level of defense in center field. And this is a guy that's hitting 280 and has some decent pop. Like
Hmm.
that's a guy that his numbers this year dictate that he has been better than Jesus Sanchez, who is, for all intents and purposes, not a plus defender, and he's been a solid bat, but he hasn't been all world fantastic. So I mean, and again, Mike Trout's had a really good year. He's hurt right now. There's question there. Aaron Judge, Cody Bellinger, can't blame them. Byron Buxton, absolutely can't blame them. Like there are obvious ones that fans get correct, but there's so many ones where if you don't have like that name, like it's clear that the Toronto Blue Jays fans had their hands in the pot because at first base, the Toronto Blue Jays are leading with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He is not an all-star starting first baseman, not with the numbers he has put up. In second place at shortstop in the American League is Andres Jimenez, the Toronto Blue Jays shortstop. First place for third base, Kazuma Okamoto, the starting third baseman for the Toronto Blue Jays. At catcher, it's Alejandro Kirk. They've got 2 outfielders in Dalton Varsho and Jesus Sanchez. DH George Springer's in there. They literally have one at every single position. For some reason, there's no first base or there's no second base. Um, but it's insane. It's insane that they literally have them at every single position. Like I just don't know how it happens. Like I don't know how somebody can look at that and go, "This is a
That
system."
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh man, it's
you got a whole country voting for the Toronto Blue Jays.
that would be true. Um, and oh man, it's just look. There's so many times that you and I'm sure, and other people out there um, have looked at it and said, you know, we watch guys who are phenomenal players who've never been on an all-star team and you just can't figure out why.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
the reason why is that they just haven't been marketed well enough.
right? Hmm.
I mean that's just the flat out honest truth is that if they were somebody that the MLB found as a media darling, and were able to cling to that, then they would, and they probably would have made a few All-Star teams at this point. But if that doesn't happen, then you're just shit out of luck.
Well, I know that Cal Ripken said a couple times that there were for at least 3 or 4 years he didn't deserve to be an All-Star.
Yeah, I think there are a
And
lot of stars
and
that
and he said that he wanted to back out of the game, saying that he wanted these other guys to have a chance to play, to be an All-Star and these guys would have ended up, on the All-Star team anyway as
Mhm.
backups, right?
Yeah,
But his point was, that he wanted to see them start. Because they were they had better numbers than I did.
yeah,
He goes, I can't, how, you know, can I justify this, you know, justify my being there when there are 3 guys I can name that are better than I am.
yeah.
And
Like,
I found that personally refreshing that somebody would think about, the other players, because he said, look, these are good guys.
yeah,
They need to be given their chance. And he goes, you never know if you're going to have another good year or not.
yeah. I mean, look, I love, and this is just the most glaring one, just because I was able to quickly look up the numbers. I
Mm-hmm.
love Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as a player. I really enjoy watching him play the game
Mm-hmm.
of baseball. I think it's
He
fun.
has fun, yeah.
He is when he is good at baseball. He has not put up all-star numbers this year. He has not put up close to all-star numbers this year. I mean, you've got a near 30-point sub 300 average, and when you have a lack of power, that becomes all the more glaring, specifically from his position and where what he's done in the past.
Yep. And I think at the from that standpoint, we have to pay attention to you know the whole situation. Is it a good system? No, it's not a good system. Why doesn't baseball change it? I have no idea.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense.
I mean, I know they get sponsorship for it. Okay, I get that, but is the sponsorship worth actually not having your best people, playing? I guess it is.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. What are you going to be watching this weekend on TV?
I unfortunately am going to close pin my eyes open and force myself to watch the rest of the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a match made in heck.
we won last night. That's
Yeah.
probably the only one, but
Well, you never know.
yeah, you
Yeah.
never know.
At least they don't have the Nationals bullpen.
Yeah, well,
So
it
there's that.
depends on the day.
Nationals are coming to Baltimore, so that a big ride from Nats Park you know up to Camden Yards, which probably takes about an hour
I was about
by
to say,
bus.
what is that? What is that, 30, 45 minutes?
Well, the thing is, it depends. If you leave early in the morning, it can be it can be 45 minutes or 3 hours, depending upon you know the famous Beltway traffic. So
Oh,
we'll see, but I'm sure they found their way up here one way or the other. Um, it's kind of funny because the trips from DC to Philly, they normally either they've a lot of times they take the train, and a lot of these guys have never been on a train before,
hmm,
and so going up there because it doesn't pay to fly. I mean that
yeah,
wouldn't hell the time by the time you got the plane off the ground, you'd have to land it again. So that's not a big deal. And so coming to Baltimore, they either come by train or they come by bus.
yeah. I in the times I've been up north, I'm a big proponent of the train. Big fan of the train.
Hmm. It's a believe me, it's a wonderful way to go.
Yeah, it's better
All
than
right,
more.
yeah, yeah. Let the driving to them. All right,
Mhm.
boys and girls. I'm gonna be checking out some baseball. Obviously, some World Cup this weekend, and check out some golf. I'll watch Nelly and see if she can scoop up a trophy this weekend,
Yeah.
and that'd be cool. And that gives us plenty to talk about. All right,
Yeah.
buddy. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll see you on Monday.